funny things going on in this story. And then we get hung up on one other thing that actually is meant to be special in the story. That phrase that recurs, yeah, but God hardened Pharaoh's heart. We're in the wrong mindset, our 20th century Western civilization mindset. We ask, well, what happened to Pharaoh's free will? Why did God force him against his will? Couldn't he help himself? This poor guy that God pushed around. He didn't have any choice. That is not what was going on in their minds. A lot of nuances in the story we can't trace out, but here's one you've probably never heard of. That word hardened that happens there through the story, there's 3 different Hebrew words for that. Okay, there's a lot of stuff going on already just to tell you that much. It's not even all the same word. It has a whole lot to do with Pharaoh's heart being stubborn, unyielding, strong. He was strong in determining what it was he wanted to do. God never put one thought in his head about wanting to keep the people in Egypt. That was his. And he was adamant about it. The big picture in the ancient thought world is you've got 2 beings, 2 persons claiming to be God. Now, who is it? And they're duking it out. And one is a human, but he's a pretty tough character. The focus is not on God forcing this poor little man, his adversary, into hardening his heart so much as God had to strengthen Pharaoh's heart to keep him in the game. He had to steel Pharaoh. He had to harden him in his own resolve because Pharaoh kept about being to give up, and God was determined to go 10 rounds and beat him every round. That's the ancient mindset. So powerful is the I am that he has to prop Pharaoh up, the most powerful in the eyes of the world, just to have a duel worthy of showing who is Lord of Lords and King of Kings. That's what's going on. It's God's power. Otherwise, there's no competition. And the Bible tells us several times, even into the New Testament, that God worked through that to say, I am the Lord, I am the God of Israel, and the whole world's going to know it. If he just had his people walk out of town one day, what would the world know? So he went up against a tough nut and cracked him, but he had to hold him up while he was doing it. And in the 10th plague, in which every Egyptian household lost his firstborn son, so did Pharaoh. This man who claimed deity, he couldn't even reproduce himself and keep his son alive when the I am acted in the Passover for the Israelites and the pass through in death to the Egyptians. I'll take that God any day of the week. Any challenge to be faced, any temptation to be beat down, any suffering to overcome, any fear to chase away, we'd better take that God. And he's there. And he said, I'll be with you. We never have to wonder if there's another way. We never have to wonder if there's another power. Anything that seems very hardened against you is just getting beaten down if you will take the God, I am. God used that last plague, the death of the firstborn throughout Egypt, to foreshadow his story for the future of his people. And that's our 3rd revelation. God revealed himself through his plan in this story. In your book, the story, beginning on about page 50, spot read a little bit down through here. Pharaoh said to Moses after the 9 plagues, get out of my sight, make sure you do not appear before me again. The day you see my face, you will die, Pharaoh threatening Moses. Just as you say, Moses replied, I will never appear before you again. That's right. The Lord had said to Moses, I will bring one more plague on Pharaoh and on Egypt. After that, he will let you go from here. And when he does, he will drive you out completely. Now, the Pharaoh drove him out. Yeah, he chases him down later, but Pharaoh got so tired of this, losing, he drove him out. Moses said, this is what the Lord says. About midnight I will go throughout Egypt. Every firstborn son in Egypt will die. from the firstborn son of Pharaoh who sits on the throne all the way down to the firstborn son of a female slave who is at her handmill, and all the firstborn of the cattle as well. There will be loud wailing throughout Egypt, worse than there has ever been or ever will be again. All the officials of yours will come to me bowing down before me, saying, "Go, you and all the people who follow you, and after that I will leave." Then Moses, hot with anger, left Pharaoh. So Moses and Aaron go to the people with God's plan. Tell the community of Israel that on the 10th day of this month, each man is to take a lamb for his family, one for each household. The animals you choose must be year-old males without defect. There will be a lamb in the future, same definition. And you may take them from the sheep or the goats. Take care of them until the 14th day of the month, when all the family members of the community of Israel must slaughter them at twilight. That's the beginning of a new day on their calendar. Then they are to take some of the blood and put it on the sides and tops of the door frames of the houses where they eat the lambs. That same night they are to eat the meat roasted over the fire, along with bitter herbs and bread made without yeast. This is how you are to eat it, with your cloak tucked up under your belt. That's so you can move fast. Sandals on your feet, you're ready to go. Staff in your hand, you're ready to go. That's why the bread's unleavened. You don't have time for it to raise. You're getting out of here real fast. One day, overnight, we're gone. Eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. Moses summoned all the elders of Israel to them and said, "Go at once, select the animals for your families, and slaughter the Passover lamb. Take a bunch of hyssop and dip it into the blood and smear it around the doorframe of your house." That's why the hyssop, that little branch picture, was used as the icon for this lesson in the bulletin and elsewhere. That's exactly what happened. And the death angel passed over Egypt, and the firstborn of them died, and everyone who was in a house behind the door frame with the blood of the lamb on it lived. And Pharaoh had it, and the people walked out of Egypt the next day, sent out with goods, as God plundered Egypt to give to his people. And he led his people in the great Exodus, led them as he always will, a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night to lead the way. But as most of you know, Pharaoh changed his mind after they got well out of town, sent a chariot army to recapture those Israelites. He lost his labor force. He's going after them. The Israelites were trapped between the sea and the threatening army. The sea of, well, actually, the Bible never says the Red Sea. It says the Sea of Reeds, which is apparently up there in the north of Egypt. People complained to Moses, "We never should have got out of there. You brought us out here to die. We're trapped between a rock, the water, and a hard spot, Pharaoh's army." And Moses was told to hold his staff out over the sea, and a strong wind drove the sea back all that night. It didn't just go whoosh like in the movie. Wind drove the sea back all night, and Israelites crossed over on dry land. Egypt chased after them, and not so much. It wasn't dry. The water came back on them and drowned the Israelite chariot army. And those people who'd been saved from slavery, saw all those signs, all those wonders, just rescued by a miracle, never grumbled again. Sounds like some of you know the story. And we pick on them and think, how could they do that? How could they see all that and falter and grumble? And unless we ask ourselves the same question, we're not being fair to them at all. How do we do that? They begin to complain about the water, so God provided water. They begin to complain about the food, so God provided food. Quail cover the camp in the evening. Thin flakes like frost to cover the camp in the morning. They could wake up and eat that. And they picked it up and said, "What is it?" If you translate that back into Hebrew, the word's manna. You know that candy bar, whatchamacallit? Yeah, that's manna. What do you call it? I've never seen that before, but God was feeding them. And Moses and Aaron told the people, "You will know the Lord delivered you. You will know the Lord feeds you. You will know the Lord gave you water." They're telling them that. And after God provided all this care, they never complained again. And if you believe believe that, you don't know or haven't yet read or forgot the rest of the story. But we're better than they are. How could they complain? If they saw those miracles, we don't complain. We would not do that if we saw those miracles. Well, except for the things that we complain about. Because I'm justified in my complaining and you're justified in your complaining. That's what we all think. So we complain about things we don't have yet because we're trying to get them. Or we complain about how our child got ripped off in the game. Or we complain about something they did or changed down at church. Or we complain that God is not listening to me. My day's not going like it should. Oh, we never complain. But do we know that the Lord has delivered us? Do we know his name? Do we believe in his power? Do we know he has a plan? He's delivering us. That's what he does. Enslaved to sin were we, kept from relationship with God. And God did something about that. He said, let my people go, sin, and he did something about it. The Israelites were free of the death angel when he passed over them because the blood of the Lamb was on the doorpost, and he told those people, you will not die. John chapter 1, verse 29. John the Baptist was privileged to announce of Jesus, behold, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. 1 Corinthians 5:7, Paul added, Christ, our Passover, our paschal lamb, has been sacrificed. The blood from the cross of Christ has to be applied to the doorframe of our souls. It's still the plan. Can't earn it. Can't do enough good to get it. Not this salvation thing. It is a gift. It is grace by faith. Credited as righteousness, we're saved through grace. Christ shed his blood in his death. Romans chapter 6, we go through a death. We die to self. We put the old man aside. Well, since we're supposed to be dead, we're buried. We're buried in water, raised to walk a new life. First verses of chapter 6, Romans 6, is exactly how Paul explains it. It's the blood that saves, the blood that's freely given, the blood that without sin of its own, the blood that was perfect, that's Jesus Christ, and we must wear it on the door frames of our souls. God's name, God's power, God's plan, still in place. The problem is sin. The problem is sin. Until we recognize it, until we admit it, we will not do the right thing about it.